What is good, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us once again on another episode of the Coffee Roaster warm-up sessions. Today, we have a dear guest, a dear friend, a fellow coffee roaster, a fellow coffee taster, and all the good things. Tim, who is
new title, right? New,
yeah.
Maybe
a couple
weeks
old.
I should have prepared that.
Exactly. I should have prepared that intro way better.
That's okay.
But we're going to do it over a cup of coffee because today, we're going to talk about roasting because you're doing quite a bit of roasting. We're going to talk about roasting, coffee in general, your coffee journey a little bit, coffee careers, and all that jazz. So, but like always, we start the podcast off with tasting and enjoying some drip. So go ahead and pour us some goods. Hopefully some goods.
I always try to pour high for like the sound effect. There was a very nice comment from fellow listeners about they love hearing the ASMR, like either us slurping it or the pouring.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
Have you all ever done a live cupping or like a recorded cupping?
Oh, we've thought about it actually.
Yeah,
we've thought about it. I think that would be fun. We're kind of working on something similar right now already, but it's with another fellow person in the coffee world.
Nice.
So we'll see. But yeah, here's some batch. We actually just cupped with Tim. We did a little fun cupping together because we miss cupping with other coffee people because through cupping together, you only get so much. It's so much of an experience. There's just a different experience with cupping with people you don't usually cup with, and who are also in the coffee game. So,
cheers.
Cheers.
Okay, first thing that made me think of is like this is what our Gucci should taste like. I don't know why, because it tasted almost like a watermelon-esque. And I feel like that's kind of the distinct flavor of what our Gucci has tasted like at its prime, whether that's a prime roast or just prime time. You know what I mean? Like, that was my first thought as soon as I sipped it. So, but it's not the Gucci. We know that. Right. All right. So should I just say what I blended?
Go for
Let
it,
him know.
Folks. Completely took a Ikawa sample roast, tossed that in, 30 grams of our good old Lagoon Java. Mm-hmm. Have we purchased that coffee? Can I talk? No. Okay. Never mind. And then I threw in our
dropping secrets.
Slight teasers. And then I dropped in, I think like 20 grams or something less, just a little bit of the Marta Ruby, which we just released. So fun stuff all around.
Absolutely yummy.
It's not bad.
Actually,
it's good.
With your weird grind setting and your weird ratio, it didn't turn out too bad.
No, it's just watery. It's kind of weak.
Yeah.
So but that's also 1:17. That's more. I think that was one of my complaints. The bed was so thin on that I'm like, it was really hard to brew a small dose in such a big cone. So,
Tim, thoughts?
It's a little hot. Actually, I don't know. This is a question for you.
Yeah.
How do you know, or what's your ideal temperature for tasting? Obviously, temperature affects taste over time, but how do you know what's comfortable when you start tasting? To me, I'm like, oh, this is too hot. I'm going to wait a little before I kind of can.
Tim, I'm going to be honest. So every time I come by Makeworth, I'll sometimes get a batch. I don't drink that batch for another 15 to 20 minutes because batch is always piping hot.
Dude,
like it's piping hot. It's dangerously hot. And so honestly, it'll sit in my car for another 20 minutes. Perfect. And sometimes I'll forget about it and I'll drink it and I'm like, lukewarm. Perfect.
What would you prefer? Wonderful. A batch brew too hot or a batch brew too cold? Ooh. It's like one of those internet questions.
Yeah. I don't know. Probably too cold. I can't take like a batch brew that's so like just piping hot that you just burn your mouth and then you can't taste anything. I don't know. I think that's a horrible experience for me.
Yeah. The difficulty with batch brew too cold is the fact that it's been sitting around, right?
Right.
So flavor is going to change. You're going to lose all your volatile flavor. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to taste anything. I mean, you're going to taste less. But batch brew too hot is you can't taste anything. It's too hot. Yeah.
And then you can't taste it when it's like, cool because then your tongue's burnt off.
Yeah, exactly. They're not getting out of this very nicely. It's a bad experience all around.
That's a trick question.
I used to measure all of my temp yields from pour overs and they were like 160 to 165 after brewing and pour over. So I think with that said, I prefer more of like 120 to 130 Fahrenheit. So, and that's one thing I did is I would measure all the time. I did that at Makeworth a lot, like especially with shots of espresso to find the peak drinking temp.
Right.
So, and I figured it's usually a minute after, about a minute after pulling a shot. So, but pour over, I don't remember how long it takes to cool down.
Yeah.
So,
Tim, too cold or too hot?
The practicalist in me is like, keep it hot, because I get more complaints if a coffee gets cold.
Yes.
Than people who adding sugar or cream, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
But if someone comes and says the coffee's cold, to your point from like a tasting, I'm like, all right, well, the coffee's already lost its complexities and qualities, and I'm going to have someone complain.
Fair enough.
Let's just make it hot. Like me, no, of course in the middle, but
totally.
Let's just go hot.
Yeah. I mean, extra hot latte. I mean,
165,
165. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, God.
That's not the most inside coffee joke.
Oh, God, no.
So that's a t-shirt. Like, we do 165.
165.
Yeah. Yes, that'd be wonderful. I'm getting a little bit of dark fruit, some berry out of it, but I don't know. Maybe it's something with me in today's cupping where I'm getting berries and fruits everywhere. Yeah. So I don't know.
It's nice. It's a little muted, to be honest. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like low clarity on this cup.
It's also like, it's an Ikawa roast.
It's Ikawa roast.
So that wasn't like really dialed, worked on really. So Ikawa, man, we should have a whole episode on Ikawa.
That would be a really great conversation.
We need to, because it's just it's such a love-hate relationship.
Right.
But anyways, folks, before we get carried away with another side tangent, Tim, give us in a nutshell what do you because it is such a bad intro for you. What do you like? What's your name and what are you doing right now in coffee?
Yeah, my name is Tim Shenkin. Tim Crook Shenkin. I am lovingly married. But we actually, fun fact, we did legally change our name to the state of California at the time, but on my driver's license and all that, it's still Tim Shenkin. So that's another podcast episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, the laziness. Have you?
That you were like legally married.
Yeah.
Okay.
3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Dude, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Been a good little time. So Tim Crook Shenkin, head roaster at Makeworth Coffee Roasters. So a rebrand there and a rebrand here.
Ooh.
You know,
You also lost the mustache.
I did.
The goal was to make a comment about it, but God, I'm like, dang it! Oh,
you lost content.
That's probably my least. That's probably my least favorite thing about the whole Makeworth 3 brand is the loss of a mustache. That's my least favorite thing about
What's the point of going anymore if he doesn't have a mustache?
When are we going to get...
He's just tall at that point.
This is a super maybe niche like comment, but do y'all know like hockey that there's an account called Chicklet?
No.
Oh, frick. They have these t-shirts of like a kind of silhouette with only like a nose and a mouth but no eyes and like a helmet.
Yeah.
We need a Tim silhouette on
that's
a shirt
powerful.
just has the beanie, the frame of the glasses, no eyes, might be creepy, but the frame of the glasses and the mustache.
That's excellent.
We need to make that happen.
Coming,
that's the kind of Makeworth Roasters merch I want.
I'd buy that merch.
I'd buy that merch, and that's not even trying to be egotistical or anything.
I'll low-key ship this podcast to Corey.
There you go.
Yeah, but anyways, so you're roasting for Makeworth.
So head roaster and also currently cafe manager. So I'm kind of wearing multiple beanies in that sense. That was bad.
Great. That's great.
Yeah, so it's awesome. Yep, one location, Makeworth Coffee in Bellingham, Washington.
Awesome.
And roasting coffee and trying to make good things happen behind the bar.
That's powerful. That's great. So, but you've also had a little bit of history before Makeworth. You've worked in coffee before. Give us a little bit of a nutshell explanation of your past coffee experience.
Yeah, for sure. So,
did you start with Starbucks?
I did in college.
You did? I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I swear, I didn't know that. That was just a side comment.
Cool.
Okay.
Hey, why did this not come out in the interview?
I don't like. I feel like everyone worked at Starbucks.
He was hiding things from you.
Yeah. I'm like, no, like I'm covering myself from indecencies or something. Listen. College is a rough time. You got to make money somehow.
It's great.
No, okay. So the brief started my coffee story in that sense. I'm kind of a jack of all trades person. I've played volleyball in college. I love school. I got like college published with writing stuff. I'm just like, I play music. I just do as many things as possible.
Right.
And it's been an awesome like life experience to be jack of all trades. But definitely at the end of the road of my like sports career in that sense, I was really existential about all of it. Like, okay, like my knees hurt. I'm kind of burnt out from this. Like, what is next? So I did some photography work, doing wedding stuff. I was coaching volleyball again. I tried getting back to competing again, and that was awesome. And then I ended up at an office job doing like a coordinator position for, doesn't even matter. And it was like the most awful experience because I'm really a creative at heart. And that office environment, not only did like I have to wear a tie and business casual type stuff, it just sucked me of like the passion for things. So I, at the time, was working that office job. A friend of a friend was a coffee roaster at can I shout out coffee? Is that cool? Yeah, please. Solid Coffee down in Southern California, like Los Angeles area, gave me my start to coffee. I had no coffee experience besides Starbucks in college. And I was working this office job and coaching volleyball. And then I would go and then basically shadowed and apprenticed. And they traded like teaching me roasting skills at this awesome little roaster. They use a Renegade roaster. And I traded for like custodial work. So I'd clean the floors and the bathroom and just kind of do all their labor. I'm a big, tall dude. So I'd move the greens, just anything that was like laborious. They're like, tall guy, go do that. And then in turn, the head roaster at the time taught me cupping and taught me tasting and sensory and bar flow and all the way to like production roasting. So I did that apprenticeship that was about 6 months of just like maybe a couple times a week for probably 8-hour days, both times. And then, from there was like really feeling entrepreneurial about all of it. So I kind of launched my own brand for what one could do at that age of coffee and age of life. And soon thereafter, I just reached out to another roaster in the area, and then they brought me on board. So that coffee shop was called Surf Cafe in Sunset Beach, California, which is just north of Huntington Beach, California, if you're familiar with that area. Yeah. So I joined them and as a head roaster and cafe manager, as a small, cute little boutique seaside chic type thing going on, and was there for almost 3 years. And then I actually was added as a partner in that business. We sold and then moved to Bellingham, Washington, and I'm doing the thing here.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
Yeah. Wow. What were you going to say? You were on the verge and then you looked at me.
No, what were you going to say?
No, I was just remembering when I first met you and hearing like part of your story and your transition to Bellingham.
Yeah.
To me, like that was like a pretty bold move. Like, I don't know. Moving to a new city is hard, but then moving into a city and trying to stay within like your passion of like wanting to work in coffee. I know that you heard about Bellingham coffee culture. Yeah. What was your first impression of like Bellingham coffee culture?
Yeah, it's the coolest thing because there are a ton of breweries, which is awesome. It's a college town and it's young. Like there's like a lot of exciting things about Bellingham. So you come to a city that maybe you would think would be otherwise slightly sleepy, but then you have like some of the best coffee coming from here in like in an amazing way. Like Camber, like I heard about Camber in Southern California when I was just getting into coffee. Yeah. There are so many wonderful roasters. The fact that I could hear about this one was like, whoa, like something's happening in that area. Yeah. And then you come here and you try the ones that don't have maybe as much of a national reach because they're more local and still just delicious coffee and delicious product. And so, you come here. I was just blown away. Like not that I couldn't believe or didn't think Bellingham was capable, but you don't know. But then you get here and you're like, wow, like Makeworth's beautiful.
It's definitely. I mean, that's totally makes sense because Bellingham is not a big town.
Right.
It's literally a town.
Right.
It's on the verge of becoming something maybe you might call a city, but probably not even that. And usually small towns don't have all this variety of coffee or even one. Right. But instead we have like really big ones. Yeah. And so that's actually kind of cool. I think like I love that. It kind of reminds me of like in Arkansas, you have Onyx Coffee Lab. Yeah. Literally my visit to Arkansas was like, there's nothing here. And literally for 2-3 days that I was there for a weekend, all we did was we just hopped through hop to 3 or the 4 locations of Onyx.
Wow.
That's all you do there.
Right.
Because in my opinion, that's all there is to do,
Well, Walmart headquarters.
Yeah,
if
or
you're
the Walmart
interested.
headquarters. Yeah. I will give him this. It's a big like bike town, so they have a lot of trails and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
That's cool. There's that. Yeah. But other than that, like you have a world-renowned coffee roasting company there. Yeah. No big deal,
Right.
So I love that. But I want to kind of dig in a little bit more about you have some experience starting a coffee roasting company. Down in California. You moved up here. You worked at Makeworth. You became the cafe manager, and now you're coming into this role of actually pioneering a coffee roasting program for them.
Yeah.
After being you guys are kind of somewhat of like a multi-roaster kind of right now.
Yeah.
You can
have been,
rotating.
Yeah.
You can say that.
For sure.
So, what are your thoughts? Share a little bit of your thoughts of like going from being a multi-roaster model to like you guys roasting your own. Do you have any thoughts or feelings about that, or what do you think are pros and cons? Or I guess also you could throw in there is like what made you guys want to head in that direction?
Yeah. So I mean, there's so much obviously like inside of that whole conversation, and
100%. Yeah.
I think the coolest part is that the model is so flexible that it works. Depending on, it could work either way. Yeah. I think some places ought to stay as multi-roaster, and some places just really need to shift to roasting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's exciting and definitely shifted my perspective in specialty coffee, where I assumed if you're specialty coffee, you have to roast, right? You have to be your own producer.
Yeah.
But especially watching narrative and just there's even like there's a neat coffee down in Costa Mesa. Mm-hmm. It's just really they source great coffee and it's perfect for the people, and it's just yummy and it's served well. And so I think broadening my perspective, I'm so thankful I got to work at a rotating roastery, a rotating coffee shop that had multiple coffees coming in. It changed my perspective because then I flip the table and I'm the roaster again, and I can appreciate the breadth of being a contributor and not the sole driver.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Even now I'm like, well, if just because we're roasting our own coffee, like I still want to bring, if someone has a coffee worth sharing, like bring your coffee. I can roast my own. And also like you're bringing in that great coffee, like let's buy that a wholesale to here and serve it. So I think in some senses it served me really nicely because I was just raised to think that you should roast your own coffee if you're in specialty. And now I can really appreciate like the community and the way that it adds value to a consumer's life. Coffee there's just so many amazing coffees. One coffee roasted in so many different ways can be wonderful. So I think that, going into now that Makeworth is transitioning to being a roaster, obviously from a business perspective, we're going to do, it's helpful. It helps the bottom line. You cut out the production costs that was associated. But it's just like, it's this cool ever-changing puzzle piece as coffee evolves on the, on the large on the market and just over time and technology. Both, right? I mean, both have value to the cafe space.
I love that you actually, I've thought about this, but the way you've worded it just brought like some fresh light on when you said the value that being a multi-roaster brings to the community. There's like a strange, like a unique value there. That being just a roasting company isn't quite the same. Not that it's better or worse. It's just a different kind of value. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense, because in your small town, you can now be able to try roasting companies from all over the world. From that multi-roaster shop. From a coffee roaster, the good thing there is, you can't try coffee roaster, roasting companies if they're roasting their own coffee locally. But what you can do is now you have a diverse flavor profile that is not found anywhere else but in your town. So there's like a push and a pull that's interesting.
Because if you think about in Portland, everyone talks about Portland being like the hotspot for coffee, and it has been like leading in the whole third wave culture for majority of the time. So within there, they have Barista PDX, and they are a roasting company, but you never hear much about that, even though they roast their own coffee. I don't know if they wholesale. And then, am I talking about Barista, right?
No, you're right. You're right.
So I can see the bag, and the bag has that photo of a roaster on it. So they have their own coffee, but then when you and I go there, we know them for the fact that they bring in other coffees. So I'm seeing that hybrid a lot, and I think like both make sense, because from a business point of view, like you're saying, like it absolutely, if you want to scale your business, that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
You don't even need to go into wholesaling, and it makes a lot of sense.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Look at Woods, like, you know what I mean? That makes perfect sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
So with that said, like that's great, because there's that aspect of bringing value to your community, and then also your business, because as a business, your community is not only your consumer base, your community is your team.
Right.
And then you're bringing value by creating more jobs and on and on and on.
Right.
Local economy, you know what I mean? There's that. But then when you're bringing in other roasting companies into your city, the value of that to me is like, man, like when can we go and get like Manhattan? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like you
exactly.
can't. Like it's super expensive to get one bag shipped here. But when you have a multi-roaster like Narrative that brings it in, like there's that. You know what I mean? So I 100% agree with you. Like both make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Being that, you know, you have the multi-roaster model and you have the coffee roasting model, both are fairly different, that require different undertakings, different responsibilities, different things to, you know, to focus on and think about and consider. What are some of those things that now you're like, I guess it's a little easier because you had some roasting experience beforehand.
Yeah.
But as you move into kind of the roasting model, what are some of the things that you have to change how you view and start to adapt or learn or pick up? I mean, one of them obviously being like, well, yesterday you weren't buying green coffee and tomorrow you are.
Yeah.
But if you want to, I mean, even if you want to talk about that, that's great.
Yeah.
But what are maybe one or two of those things that now you're like, okay, now I have to actually focus on this and be attentive to things like this that you weren't before?
Yeah. One practical and one like personal, I guess. So I was roasting on a Gießen prior to this, and I loved roasting on Gießen. It's just it's like so solid. It's dense. It's like driving a big bus in some senses, where it's just like you know where you're going and you have great control over your coffee, and tasty coffees came out. On a San Franciscan now, I love it. I'm excited. It has a lot of similar overlapping qualities like on the roaster itself, but what a wide new world where I can adjust so many more variables in a new way.
Yeah.
You know, I'm really excited for that. And I think that there's a lot of technicalities that are going to go into like reinventing myself on a whole new machine and understanding convection and conduction, all those things that we get technical about.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
I have to reinvent myself all over because I can't just rely on some of the things I just did without thinking on a Gießen.
Yeah.
But I think more important, that's like the fun part, and I don't want to say the easy part because it's like that's a lifetime's worth of study.
Right.
But I think what caught my eye most recently is like the idea of vulnerability that I've loved. Like I've thought about this and journaled about this like a bajillion times because as a cafe manager, my job is to present the work of really someone else, be it farmers and then roasters. Then I just do really, it's not the simplest task, but it's the last page of a big book of like, here's how the book goes. And I think, to be honest, I'm like scared to roast again.
Yeah.
I did a good job last time. We like won an award. People loved the coffee. Yelp said we were great. But now I'm like, I have to be vulnerable all over again. I have to re-share and put my heart out and risk like, I might roast this coffee and it might taste like bad, you know? And like I'm censoring myself. We don't say bad words here.
Yeah, we know.
I don't. So I think it's been interesting because like the reinvention of myself is a lot more interpersonal in that sense as a roaster this time. I still believe a lot 'about DTR and rate of rise and all these things. They evolve and change, but it's largely the same, and it probably will for the sake of time. But like now I'm me 2 or 3 years later as an adult, as a human, as a partner, as a as a son. Like so much has changed for me interpersonally. I'm having to re-examine like who I am as a person now that I'm roasting coffee again. And that's really scary. I'm scared that I won't do good. I'm hopeful that I do. You know, it's like nothing to do with the coffee anymore. It's all about kind of the inner workings. And I'm finding this go around launching a roaster, I'm asking less about how to do coffee roasting and more how to be myself as a coffee roaster.
I think the exciting thing for me, like seeing the role that you're taking at Makeworth, is the fact that you have such a strong, like such a big impact in defining like another version of Makeworth's brand. And I think that's super exciting for me to witness you do that. That's super cool, because one of the things that I've witnessed on a personal level about you from when we met, I remember when we went bowling, and you and Sierra just drilled me with questions in the most positive way. And there's this curiosity and inquisitive ability that you have and Sierra, so both of y'all have, that I think will carry into how you approach a roast, which I think is insanely beneficial. Especially what you just shared previously about, like, that's also tied to your identity, but what I already see in you is that curiosity. So I think I'm very hopeful that that's going to carry over into roasting, and is going to also carry over into Makeworth branding. Because the whole idea behind Makeworth being a place that celebrates craft and cultivates connection or community. Connection. Like that element, like roasting makes sense. And like, so I'm excited. That's an encouragement and a level of excitement to see you're on the right track with what you were just saying, but I kind of see like where this is going to go in the most positive way.
I think also that was how you described that was really well said. Put a lot of words to things that I think, I don't know about Sergi, but for sure I experienced, especially starting Mir, and then also as we grow with Mir. As a coffee roaster, you're right. It's a huge vulnerability because, I mean, I don't want to sound all sappy, and say, oh, roasting is this like craft and this art. It's like a blank vessel. It's like annoying. It's like, okay, cool. Like roasting is an art. Okay, cool. Roll your eyes. Okay. But at the same time, like, I don't want to be that guy, but I will be that guy, because to a certain extent, that's kind of something that's not avoidable. It's like, it is actually a craft. It is an art. It is, something that you make the final call on. Do you want to take this darker or lighter? Do you personally prefer this coffee, here or there, with this much DTR, with this time, with this degree? And nobody's going to tell you that other than you yourself. And it's more of you looking into yourself and saying, oh man, you cup of coffee and you're like, this is it. And that feeling is so freaking good. But it's also the most intimidating and vulnerable feeling, because now you're like, this is good and it's ready to be shipped out to people or served at the cafe. And then it's like, well, you're almost at that point now, just handing it over to a group of people and saying, do what you want with it. There it is, But I've done my best, And so there's so much vulnerability in there that I'm so glad you brought it up, because, I think coffee roasting, there's a lot of technicality that you need to tackle, but there's also this unforeseen kind of thing that you kind of have to. So that was just well said. I don't know.
I mean, what I was going to say too was, I think the last evolution for my experience is like team. So previously roasting, it was in probably in an unhealthy or just unsustainable way. It was like Tim's call, what we bought, how we used it, how we brewed it, how we wrote, like me, because there's no one else that really could have provided that feedback. But I think this time around, like, my hope and greater expectation for myself is like building a team. So when I go to cup, if there's a line, but if my gut says, but if everyone on the team's stoked, like, we are a tribe or a unit. Like, I think there's something cool about that experience in tasting. Even today when we're cupping, what you were saying about the vanilla is like, wow, I never would have thought that way. I don't like boozy tasting coffee and how my palate goes, but like you said it that way, I'm like, I get it. That's awesome. So I think the collaboration's like the last evolution of like, sure, I'll make a lot of decisions. The pressure is on in that sense, but like, what does a team contribution look like to roast development? Will be kind of the next question I ask.
And I think it's essential. It's essential. Absolutely. It's a collaborative process, and I think a lot of these things come with having, a good group of people around you that are skilled, that are also in this for the craft with you. But also over time, it's things that you just grow into, and you begin to figure things out and begin to get better, and you hone in on your craft, and it's a beautiful process.
That's very well said. I think a few things that like just strike me in my mind is the fact that when a team gets to define maybe a certain flavor profile or a certain roast style, the team gets to own it. And that is key for a business to be able to sell coffee. If a team doesn't own the coffee that they're serving, then your sales are not going to climb. But when the team has cupped that coffee, so familiar with that coffee, when someone asks flavor notes, they don't even think flavor notes. They're thinking of just like their experience with the coffee.
Yes.
That's powerful.
It's not even easy to, you're not selling.
Yeah.
You're just telling people what you enjoy. You know what I mean? Like the classic like testimonial that you would read like or a Yelp review, that's going to continue to happen from a very natural point of view from the team perspective. And that is so key. Like, I mean, I know that from now working for a multi-roaster, like I know the fact that when we have very expensive coffees, like the price can be intimidating, but when a barista knows why the price is like that and can like back that up with flavor, it's not a sell. It's just a confirmation to someone who's already potentially interested. So what you're saying is like, again, that's like totally agree. That resonates with me pretty deep.
That's super powerful. Actually, I'm really glad you touched up on that because there's a sense of confidence that comes with owning the coffee that you have behind the bar, and that is not something that you can replicate.
Nope.
There's also it's not something that you can. I would say maybe not that you can something you can train or instill.
No.
And so I love it because a lot of these things, once again, like they're so they're less technical and there's something more. I don't know. It's intuition or I don't
primal.
even,
like it's primitive. It's intrinsic.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
So,
I was gonna say, and because taste, everybody can taste coffee. Everyone, like you know, your kitchen crew can taste coffee. Your owners can taste coffee. Your roaster and baristas can all taste coffee. Yeah. But the fact is, they're gonna use different vocabulary, and that's a big plus. When it comes to like just displaying your coffee, like coffee doesn't have to stick to 3 flavor notes on a label, right? Because your experience with that taste is going to be much different. You're triggering memories. So I can't even, that resonates so deep. So that's good.
I have like, so today at Makeworth, we hosted Bellingham high school students that was like English as second language, education type experience. And they came in and they were predominantly students who only spoke Spanish. And so I said, I have a Guatemalan coffee. And like one student literally moved from Guatemala recently, got excited. And they don't like coffee. They don't really speak much, English. Yeah. I only speak a little bit of Spanish. So all of the things that externally would have separated us.
Yes.
Even like, they don't even like coffee, but all of a sudden it's like, it made this memory and this experience. So then you put that type of intrinsic thing in front of a trained team. Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's the innocence and the intrinsic thing that humans just do. I hope I can garner that at Makeworth,
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
powerful.
That is really powerful. That's excellent. I love this. As we wrap up this episode, which just went by too quick, like all the other episodes, maybe give people one piece of advice, maybe 2, of people who are just coming into their coffee journey or have been in their coffee journey that maybe that you've learned over time. That you'd want to share with the people listening. Yeah.
So it's like, I guess I operate off of this paradox of former college player where like practice and diet and everything intense of discipline. Like if you're going to get into coffee, because it's so layered and complex, like get super disciplined, like take your notes, ask your questions, be humble, like everything that if you ever played sports, you have to do when you learn a new skill. Like coffee in some sense is a skill. But I think then on the complete paradox is like, but it's just bean juice. Like that's kind of why I'd say like lighten up. It's just a drink. Like it both deeply matters and doesn't matter at all. And I think when you like run that seemingly contradictory perspective, it's like you'll have a great time. You'll probably make something you're proud of, whether you're brewing at home or you're trying to start your own company. Like be so insanely disciplined, but just remember it's bean juice. Yeah. And I think in the middle, you'll be pretty darn happy with what you get to do.
Yep. Yeah. Work and rest. Yeah. And then you work and rest. Yeah. And then you rest and work.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. That's killer.
So good. That was great. Yeah. That's very great advice, actually. Something I'm going to meditate on for the rest of the evening. Well, thank you so much, Tim, for being on the podcast, for chatting with us, for tasting some okay batch.
Oh, delicious. Now that it's lukewarm.
It actually tastes worse now.
Yeah. For spending some time cupping with us and just everything. Like it's been a pleasure. We'll probably have you on again later on because there's some stuff that I would want to talk to you about that we didn't touch upon today's episode. But But yeah, folks, that's going to be a wrap up for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us once again. If you have any thoughts, questions, or concerns, drop them in the comments. If you're watching this on YouTube, or send us a DM and email. We're always willing to continue the conversation. But hopefully this was inspiring, encouraging, or, just straight up entertainment, so that was good. But
thanks, Tim.
Yeah, thank you.
That being said, remember, folks, reflect what's good.